That's rip to one legend, and rip to another too. My man's Abraham Lincoln. His penny's dead. It's gone now. The U.S. Mint has officially stopped minting these pennies, and they're giving a bullshit reason. They're saying that the pennies just aren't worth it to make anymore because it costs, you know, more than the penny's value to make, something like 3 to 5 cents, when its actual value when you're using it, it's only 1 cent. But you know, this was the case a long time ago. This has been a problem for 10-20 years that I've known of. And you know, back when I spoke to my teachers and some people who knew about this stuff, they mentioned how it was kind of like the US bragging about how strong their economy is. In a sense, they would be printing out these 1 cent coins when it cost more than 1 cent even back then to create the coins. But yet it's kind of a bragging right. Look how strong the US economy is, that we can afford to do this. And now obviously we can't. Our economy's kind of gone down the shitter, and so they're looking for ways to cut corners as much as they can. We just last episode we talked with Atrioc about the 50-year mortgage. Trump is introducing the 50-year mortgage. Yep, this is another one. Now they're removing the pennies from circulation. So rip to the legend.
Tonight, after more than 230 years in circulation, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia pressing the last ever American penny.
We're saying goodbye to the penny today.
U.S. Treasurer Brandon Beach on hand for the historic moment as production of the 1 cent coins officially comes to an end. The final 2 pennies going up for auction.
It's still legal tender, and we have over 300 billion of them in circulation.
Earlier this year, President Trump calling the coin wasteful, as the cost to produce just 1 penny is now almost 4 times its face value.
Wasteful, yeah, right.
For years, it's been a hotly debated
yeah,
issue.
right.
Did this report way back in 1990 about the first congressional bill attempting to eliminate the ill-fated coin.
When we put a few pennies on the sidewalk, no one bothered to pick them up.
But despite
shit, I pick up every penny.
The abrupt death of the penny has left some banks
I pick up every penny.
Scrambling. Let's say that you go to a store and the cost is $5.53. You're paying in cash.
Yep.
What do you tell the customer?
So right now, the vast majority of our members are going to round that up to the nearest nickels.
Retail trade groups now urging Congress to establish a national standard for rounding cash transactions. But tonight, many just saying goodbye.
We're going to have a moment of mourning.
Sharing their thoughts for a penny. Liz Kreutz, NBC News.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. Pretty sad that they're taking away the penny from us. It really is the death of an era. People don't realize it, and but they'll realize it soon. You know, their children are definitely gonna know what the fuck is up. It's a death of an era. Now, actually, I've been seeing some news about crypto being legitimized by government, even though a lot of people just in general haven't accepted it, at least here in the US anyway. And so now they're saying crypto is going to be more real than cash. So how about that? Let's listen into this other video here. Stores brace for price rounding and cash register chaos as the U.S. Mint shuts down penny production.
Pennies, look at all them. Well, guess what? The U.S. Mint says it's no longer worth it for them to make these. That's because each penny costs
they bitches, they fucked up the economy.
Cents. So it's not really worth it anymore. Now, that means that stores are going to have big decisions to make. They're going to have to either round up or round down to hit the nearest nickel or dime. And that means that they're either going to have to take the cost on, or their customers are going to have to take the cost on. So that's going to be a tough decision. And also, the National Association of Convenience Stores says that half of all transactions at convenience stores are paid in cash, and they don't have enough pennies to make change for people. So that's causing a problem. There are 250 billion pennies out there, but nobody knows where they are. There's a shortage of pennies. They're asking the federal government for clarity. How much of these new, or how much of the old pennies going to be worth? Well, guess what? They're not much. Pennies, look at all.
All right, that's enough. So there's another thing I found interesting here. Who owns the debt? You might ask, the US is, what is it now, $35 trillion in debt? And we're not the only country. I mean, Japan has their own debt. China has their own debtors too, creditors. So who's a creditor in all this? Who legally owns the $35 trillion that the US owes? If you don't know, you might be surprised to find out that in part,
every country on earth is in debt.
In part, it's you. Let's listen into what this guy's got to say.
The United States now owes over $38 trillion, the highest figure in its history. The European Union carries around $14 trillion. Japan, almost $9 trillion. Even oil-rich nations like Saudi Arabia or export powerhouses like Germany and China all owe enormous sums. But here's the paradox. If everybody owes money, who exactly is owed? This is the financial historian, where money, power, and history collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. Debt isn't just a burden, it's the architecture of the modern world. Every war, every crisis, every boom and bust sits on top of this invisible scaffolding of IOUs. And if you follow the chain of creditors long enough, you discover something unsettling. The world doesn't owe money to anyone in particular, it owes it to itself. But that doesn't mean everyone benefits equally. To understand how we reached this point, a planet drowning in over $315 trillion of total debt, nearly 3 times the size of the global economy, we need to go back to the beginning. Centuries before the first credit card swipe or digital transfer, the idea of national debt was born not in Wall Street, but in war. In 1694, England was fighting France and running out of gold. The king turned to merchants for help. In exchange for a permanent stream of interest payments, backed by future taxes, they financed the crown. To manage this new arrangement, the Bank of England was created. It was revolutionary. The state could now spend money it didn't yet have. And in return, lenders received something priceless, a promise from the government, one that could be traded, bought, or sold. That was the birth of the government bond, the seed of the modern financial system. France copied it. The Netherlands refined it. The newly independent United States adopted it to fund its revolution and later its expansion westward. National debt became not a mark of failure, but a measure of credibility. The ability to borrow was the ability to rule. Empires once conquered territory to extract gold. Now they issued bonds to extract interest. The battlefield became the balance sheet. Fast forward 3 centuries, and debt has become the world's dominant export. The United States owes $38 trillion, Japan over $9 trillion, and global borrowing increases by the equivalent of $1 trillion every 100 days. Every country owes. Every bank lends. Every citizen, through taxes, savings, and pensions, is both debtor and creditor. But who, exactly, holds the other end of the rope?
Your kids.
Let's start with the United States, because its debt isn't just national, it's global. Out of that $38 trillion, about half is publicly held, meaning owed to investors rather than to other parts of government.
Pretty soon,
Roughly
the only thing you're going to inherit your kids is debt.
Banks, pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies, and the Federal Reserve itself. The remaining 1/3, about $9 trillion, sits in foreign hands. Japan is the top holder with around $1 trillion, followed by China with about $800 billion, then the UK, Luxembourg, and Belgium. So when people say the US is in debt to China, that's true, but only for roughly 2% of the total. Most of the debt America owes is to America. The Treasury issues bonds.
Americans.
Banks and funds buy them. The Federal Reserve often buys them back, creating new dollars in the process. Americans pay taxes that fund interest on those bonds, which then flow into American retirement accounts. It's a circular mirror. The debt is real, but the creditor is mostly a reflection of the same system. And this circularity isn't just American, it's global. Japan lends to the US through treasuries. The US lends to Europe through the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations through the World Bank. Developing nations, in turn, lend back to advanced economies by parking foreign exchange reserves in Western bonds. It's a planetary game of hot potato, except the potato is made of promises. Every country holds someone else's IOU. Every promise is secured by another promise. It's like a poker table where every player has borrowed chips from the next, and the only rule keeping the game alive is that nobody stands up. But there's a fourth layer, the most powerful of all, the markets themselves. Behind every government bond sits a web of institutions, hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks, managing tens of trillions in assets. They are the true arbiters of credit. They decide which nations can borrow cheaply and which will pay a premium for survival. When they lose confidence, currencies collapse, governments fall, and entire economies can be restructured overnight. Democracy decides who governs, markets decide who survives. And the ultimate market maker, the modern high priest of this system, is the central bank. Central banks don't merely manage debt, they manufacture it. Every time the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank buys government bonds, it creates new money in exchange. The liability of one balance sheet becomes the asset of another. Every dollar in circulation represents a unit of debt somewhere else. There is no such thing as debt-free money. Every coin, every bill, every digital dollar has an IOU engraved invisibly on its surface. For decades, this loop has sustained itself through confidence. So long as investors believe governments will pay interest, even if never the principal, the machine keeps turning. But what happens when confidence wavers? We've seen it before. In Greece in 2010, the government's debt became unpayable. Bondholders panicked, yields spiked. The European Central Bank and IMF intervened, but
Why do yields spike? Because everyone's selling.
their rescue came with austerity, tax hikes, spending cuts, and mass unemployment. For an entire generation, bailout became another word for sacrifice. In Argentina, repeated defaults turned debt into a national curse. In Sri Lanka, fuel shortages and political collapse followed when the government ran out of foreign currency to service loans. When the system breaks, the creditors suddenly become visible. The IMF,
I gotta change my
the
wheel.
rating agencies, the anonymous bondholders who hold entire nations by the throat. And yet, even after collapse, the same logic restarts. New loans replace old ones, old debts are restructured. The machine resets with a new name on the same balance sheet. That's because in the 21st century, debt isn't designed to be repaid. It's designed to be rolled over. Governments today don't actually plan to pay off their debt. Not now, not ever. That's not conspiracy. It's policy. When you or I take a loan, we're expected to repay the principal. But governments operate differently. They treat debt like a rolling subscription, issuing new bonds to pay off old ones, a process economists call refinancing. Interest becomes the real product, the rent charged for stability. The global economy now depends on that rent, like a shark that must keep swimming to breathe. The global financial system today runs on confidence, not repayment. The United States will never clear its $38 trillion debt. It will refinance it forever. Japan has been rolling over its debt for decades, now exceeding 250% of GDP, and yet its government bond yields remain near zero. Investors aren't waiting to be repaid. They're waiting to renew the deal. Why? Because for them, government debt is the safest collateral in existence. A U.S. Treasury bond isn't viewed as a liability. It's an asset, the foundation of global markets. Pension funds hold it, banks use it as security, central banks treat it as money. The system depends on governments never paying off their debt, because if they did, the world would lose its most trusted financial instrument. Imagine if Washington somehow decided to pay down every last dollar of its debt. Banks and funds around the world would suddenly lose their most stable asset. The dollar supply would shrink dramatically, triggering deflation and collapse. Paying off the debt would destroy the very thing that makes the economy function. So governments do the opposite. They keep issuing more, not recklessly, but rhythmically. The debt becomes a kind of heartbeat for capitalism itself, pulsing through every pension, mortgage, and market on Earth. And that's why when politicians talk about balancing the budget or paying down the national debt, they're selling an illusion. The goal isn't to eliminate debt. It's to keep it sustainable, serviceable, and desirable enough that the system never stops believing in it. Because once belief fades, the numbers stop mattering. Confidence collapses, interest rates spike, and the economy, built entirely on rolling promises, grinds to a halt. That's the real secret of sovereign debt. The plan was never to pay it back. The plan is to keep the world believing it will. It's a closed loop of trust, and as long as that trust holds, the numbers can stretch indefinitely. But trust is not evenly distributed. When we say we owe it to ourselves, that's only half true. Interest payments don't flow equally through society. They flow upward, from taxpayers and workers to the institutions and investors that hold the debt. In other words, debt isn't just a transfer between countries. It's a transfer between classes. That's why global inequality and global indebtedness rise together. The system rewards those who own debt and punishes those who merely pay it. If that sounds familiar, it's because it's the same story scaled up. From households to nations, from nations to the planet. Creditors aren't villains, debtors aren't victims. They're two sides of the same engine. The problem is, what happens when the engine runs out of fuel? When new borrowing can't keep pace with the promises made before? That's when the question, who's the creditor, stops being abstract and starts being personal. Because at the top of this global pyramid, there isn't one face to blame. It isn't China. It isn't Wall Street. It isn't the IMF. It's all of them, and us. The modern financial system has turned debt itself into money. Governments issue it, banks multiply it, investors trade it, and citizens depend on it. The line between debtor and creditor has blurred beyond recognition. Debt once meant bondage. Today, it means balance. But if that balance ever tips, if confidence breaks, the illusion ends, and we'll remember what debt really is. A promise that can't be kept forever. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.
Very interesting. In a sense, all this inflation we're seeing, and that's another side effect of all this crazy money shit that's going on.
Chatters, viewers, there's a lot of problems in this country. We know that. We talk about it all the time. There's a lot of problems. But there's one problem that is bigger than them all. There's one thing we have been asking for and begging for over and over again. And I mention it. It's the core root of a lot of discontent, a lot of angst in this country, and it's housing. People, especially young people, feel like they can't get a place to call their own. And that used to be a very stabilizing thing for society. Again, the average age of a first-time home buyer when I was born in 91, dear God, I'm old, was 28. 28 at the time. You would be in your early adult life, be able to get a house, start a family. Now it's 40. So it's gotten way worse. And finally, our great president, Donald J. Trump, has a plan to fix it. And it's called the 50-year mortgage. Released with this great Truth Social post that shows FDR 30-year mortgage, Donald J. Trump 50-year mortgage.
How is that the solution? 50 years? Well, I know that's their solution because you're passing the debt on to them. So the kid's gonna be inheriting a home. Well, the mortgage. Shit.
It's 20 years better. Now, I want to explain what this is, bro, because here's the thing. Housing costs have gotten too expensive. People can't afford even the loan to get these houses because the monthly payment is too high. And so the market is starting to get wobbly. We had a great interview with Melody Wright about it. That'll probably be coming out soon, where we're going to try to explain that people can't keep up with these payments and prices will have to come down. But prices coming down is yuck. Our system can't handle prices coming down. We don't want prices to coming down. So what is the solution that we've always gone back to time after time after time again in this country? It's called subsidized demand. So
I just need to subsidize demand. Home prices. People get angry. Subsidize demand. Home prices go up.
Subsidized demand, bro. All we have to do is find a way to increase people's ability to borrow and spend so that we can keep prices up. If you can't afford a 30-year mortgage payment, well, then we'll spread it out over 50 years so that your monthly payment is smaller. You're in debt for longer and you're paying way more interest. Let me be clear on this. The average U.S. housing cost, $400K right now. It's the average U.S. house. Now, obviously, it's way higher in some places, but $400K is the average cost of a house in the United States. So on that average house, if it went from a 30-year mortgage at current mortgage rates to a 50-year mortgage, you would save about $300 a month in payments. Hell yeah, brother. You can take out that big loan. You can take out that big loan because you can have $300 extra a month. How about that? And the only downside is that by the time you're done paying it all off, you will have paid an additional 400 grand in interest. 86% more interest over those next 20 years.
Oh my
But
God.
a small price to pay for a smaller monthly
86% interest. God damn. Yeah, they ain't gonna even want to be paying off their mortgage. Yo, what's going on, Kendall? It's just crazy. You see this mortgage bullshit? 86% more interest over the course of a 50-year mortgage, which it seems like they're going to be putting as the standard. Holy shit. Atriarch just went over some stats. 28 was the average home buyer age in 91, and today the average home buyer age is 41 or something like that.
Payments. How about that? Again, you can see this here. Total interest paid on a 400K house. For a 30-year mortgage, you're still paying 463K in interest. That's what it is now. Like, you end up paying in total 863K. You pay more in interest than the cost of the house. But because it's stretched over 30 years, that's what you get for a 30-year loan, bro. But when you're doing 50-year, you're not paying 863K just in interest on a 400K house. You are essentially in debt slavery for your entire life. 50 years is, you could be going into your 90s at current rate. It's absurd. And so it's so comically a bad idea. It works in that it lowers monthly payments and kicks the can down the road. It is the ultimate solve nothing, change nothing, fix nothing, kick the can strategy. But it is.
I'm not so good because I'm trying to buy a house right now, and this news has got me feeling down. Holy shit.
So transparently not how people want to live or what they want their life to be like. And by the way, it's not just this one proposed tweet from Trump. Bill Pulte, who we've talked about, who's the head of the Federal Housing Association, came out, the FHA, and said, thanks to President Trump, we are indeed working on the 50-year mortgage, a complete game changer. But a game changer for who? It is a game changer to keep housing prices propped up as boomers die and sell. That's what it is. As boomers near the end of their life and they have multiple properties they are trying to unload and can't sell right now, they need people to be able to take out these loans to buy them. And because they can't afford a 30-year mortgage, they're going to extend it to 50 years. I hate this. I can't tell you how much I hate this. As a strategy, as a plan, it is morally and financially bankrupt, and it is a future of just endless debt slavery. Now, at the same time, it's not just a 50-year mortgage. Trump is also proposing $2,000 stimmy checks.
Yeah, that's just to keep people happy right now. You're going to get $2,000. Is that going to solve your 86% interest? No. That's going to allow you to pay rent for like 2 months, maybe.
So Trump is also proposing a
They think we're
$2,000
stupid.
stimmy check funded with, I guess, the tariff revenue. This would be more than they've made on all tariffs. And they've already spent the tariff revenue on other things. And also, the tariffs might be knocked down by the Supreme Court. The only way this money is coming from is debt. Like, the government's going to borrow it because we don't actually have it from tariff revenue. So a $2,000 stimmy check and a 50-year mortgage is a clear sign that they are trying to head off a downturn by massively subsidizing demand, by just throwing more money at the problem, which again causes rising prices. Housing prices will go up if your mortgages, and you'll just be in debt longer. It's horrible. I think I want to kind of sum this up in a key phrase that is the core of my content for years now, which is whether it's Trump, whether it's Republicans, whether it's Democrats, whether it's a different country and if you're living in a different country and it's your own government, somebody somewhere is going to have to take the pain. We are getting to comical levels of can kicking. Each individual one has less and less effect and more problems, more side effects. Somebody has to accept that there's going to be consequences of prices going down and boomers having a worse outcome. Boomers are going to have to accept in some country, in some world, that the prices of the things they own have to go down. Their houses and their stocks, they have to reset to an economy that is tracked to actual wages. And we're getting.
I sent you some work on Discord. You didn't reply to me yet. Oh shit,
the
yeah.
cost of a house on interest for 50 years.
I'm not on Discord very much. You can find me on Twitch. And you can find me on YouTube. Check out my Twitch about page. Tell me what you think of the new panels there.
In a disgusting alternative.
There's some brand new panels.
Again, the same as Japan, what I said.
There's some brand new panels that you can see, and I added a few different things to the descriptions there. Tell me what you think. And give me your honest opinion, your honest opinion as a creator of panels, and you say you also offer some other stuff, so I'm sure you got a visual design Let me know. Let me know.
It all comes back to the government's complete inability to allow voters to take pain, specifically boomer voters. They won't let them take pain. They will do whatever they can in their power to subsidize demand, to prop up, to kick the can. Things don't work when you do that. The truth is that these prices need to come down, and they would come down in a normal economy because they would be tracked to wages of people that can afford them. Anyway, it's bad. So I like what Amy Nixon here said. Young people will be in debt for their entire lives. Their kids will inherit mortgages on home. Imagine passing down a mortgage to your kid. It's crazy. 50 years, that'll happen for a lot of people. They're getting a bill. Additionally, you know, if I do a little economic extra look at this, one of the worst things about 50-year mortgages versus 30-year is that in the 30-year mortgage, for the first few years,
Yeah, and then these boomers are probably gonna be thinking that they're doing their children a favor by securing such an expensive mortgage, such a beautiful home. And who cares that you're gonna end up paying for it half your life? It's like buying a home now these days is becoming a generational thing, where you buy a home not just for you and your family and possibly pass it on to your kids once they come of age. No, it's like a thing that you keep in the family. So it's gonna be, I guess, another way of dividing the social classes. There'll be families, you know, 2 or 3 generations in that can afford homes, and there'll be other families that just can't. That's really raising the bar to owning homes. Yeah, dude, I suggested you a logo or a banner.
you are paying basically only interest, but you relatively quickly start putting some of the money
Like a
you're
banner
paying
for what?
towards equity, owning
Or a
piece of the home.
logo?
So after
Yeah,
like 10,
send me some
15 years,
logos.
you own a good chunk of your home.
Try to
You
make it
have equity
match the
built up. In the
panels.
50-year mortgage, you are
Last time
paying
you sent me
basically
some things
only
that don't
interest
really fit
for
me or my
decades. You can
channel.
get a house at 40,
But if you can
and at
match
60
something, the
still own like
vibe
2%
of
of the
the,
house. Like, you own a small percent.
if you can match the vibe of the panels on my Twitch. Match the design of the panels and send me something. Tell me if you need fonts, I guess.
You've just paid nothing but interest. It's just a dark future, bro. It is a dark future. Now, I do want to say, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. This is a quote from me. This is a little bit of a patriarch. In that interview with Melody Wright, which is 5 days ago, aka 3 days before Trump posted this tweet, and then all these news articles start talking about the 50-year mortgage. This is from me. Or you do like Canada, and you start getting like, it's like no one can afford the payment on a 30-year mortgage, so you start adding 40-year mortgages, 50-year mortgages, so you can make the payment smaller, so people can, like, you start doing anything like that.
And
so
how
you
much
can
smaller? How much smaller? What, fucking $342? Is that what he said?
I mean, is he watching? I put that out, and then 3 days later, Trump is tweeting 50-year mortgages. I'm the new FDR. This shit's crazy. But I was like half joking because it's such a comical thing to do.
And
It's
they
like
actually
such
did
an
it. It's
admission
a
of
fucking clown
desperation
world.
on
Yeah.
when we have
There
no
we
way
go.
out where we can keep propping the shit up. I mean, what's next? Dude, because it doesn't solve any problems, the problem will continue, right? And so the next thing you do is
De-dollarization
a
across
70-year
the
mortgage
world,
or
for
a 100-year
sure.
mortgage. You have to, when
Now, that de-dollarization is gonna be pretty big, but let's see what happens with oil too. Are we gonna uh completely decouple the dollar from the oil? Uncertain times for sure.
someone comes out of the womb, you have to give them a mortgage for their entire life. They're just in permanent debt slavery for a house they don't even own. It's ridiculous. I shouldn't say anything. You're gonna be watching, dude. I'm having
Don't give any
White
more
House officials are
ideas.
furious with Bill
Shit.
Pulte, the Federal Housing Finance Agency director, who talked the president into suggesting a 50-year mortgage plan. On Saturday evening, Pulte arrived at Donald Trump's Palm Beach Golf Club with a roughly 3x5 poster board in hand. A graphic of former President Franklin Roosevelt appeared below 30-year mortgage and of Trump below 50-year mortgage. The headline was Great American Presidents.
And then Trump says, "Oh, I love it." He thinks it's the greatest idea since sliced cheese, extending 30-year mortgages as a standard to 50 years. And then pretty soon we're going to have 75 to 90-year mortgages. So it's becoming a generational thing. You and your kids and your grandkids.
Roughly 10 minutes later, Trump posted the image to Truth Social. This is a clown country. What that shows too, obviously Donald Trump is going to jump at any chance that he thinks he can be compared to great presidents and whatever. I don't think Trump deeply thought about the interest implications of the subsidized demand of the 50-year mortgage, but Bill Pulte did. And it shows that Bill Pulte and the FHA are seeing what Melody Wright was talking about. They are seeing the clear deterioration in the housing market. It's coming fast and furious. It is coming. And so they're trying to get ahead of it by finding a way to, again, subsidize demand and prop things back up. But the data they're seeing is clearly bad. He is rushing to Trump's office to poster board trick him into pushing this horrendous idea. Could it be possible this doesn't even work? Yeah, of course it could. Yeah, that could absolutely be possible. But, you know, if you force banks to offer a 50-year mortgage using the power of the government, or you do it through the government, it can prop things up for a while. It can. I don't know if it'll work, but it can. Because, you know, let's say you're a young person. Let's say you're 27, right? There's a house in your neighborhood, costs $600K. You can't afford it, all right? The monthly payment will be too high. But if you can now get a 50-year mortgage, if they clear you for that, you know, if the government forces it through and they don't do a credit check or whatever, they can give you for that. Maybe the new monthly payment, which is a little bit lower, you can afford. You can barely squeak it by. So instead of the housing price having to fall from $600K to something affordable, you can buy a $600K house. It's out of your price range, but because of this loan, because it's over 50 years, you can buy it. And that keeps the housing prices up. It's horrible. It's bad. And we don't want it, but it could work to keep the housing prices up. But it's just a can kick. It's a can kick. Debt really is a magical free money with no consequences. Yeah, I think that really summarizes my content, actually. I think the core message I'm trying to give across is that debt is perfect and good, and nobody ever has to pay down the road. It's that government and people can just borrow and borrow and borrow, and there's no consequences, and it's great.
What a horrible path we're going down. It's really, really bad. I wonder what's happening in the stock market. I haven't checked it in a while. But damn, for sure it's gonna have some consequences. It reminds me of that. All the news that was happening about the crash 5 years ago, and it never really happened. Not as big as people thought it was gonna be. But something like that's certainly cooking up. For sure.
Just own nothing and be in constant debt. I'll say one more thing. I did that interview with Bill Moreland. It's still not up, I apologize. But Bill Moreland is a bank regulator. He used to work as a risk officer at a major bank, which would mean he would look at the bank's books to make sure they were not taking undue risk with their loans. And he said this is how banks think about debt. You are a cup. And what they want to do is fill you up just to the brim with debt. It's like as a monthly payment. So like, let's say you make $5K a month. What they want to do is they want to have your $700 car payment. They want you on a credit card, $600 a month, whatever. They want you on a mortgage doing, $3K a month. They basically want to fill this up exactly to the brim. And then he said, if you're really good at the job, if you want to get promoted, you have to find a way to make it bubble over just a little bit without spilling. They need to make sure that every available dollar that you have that can go to a monthly recurring payment, like their whole job is to find creative ways that you can afford more debt, that you can continue servicing debt constantly. And it really is horrifying. I think some of you look at that and go, oh, that's just evil. It's just that's just evil. But what you're not understanding is that it's also stupid on their. It also adds incredible risk on their part. It bakes in all this risk to our economy because if this changes at all, you have no wiggle room. And the only reason that the banks can do this is that they expect to get bailed out if shit goes wrong. It's the moral hazard. If the government did not bail out and guarantee this insane level of debt, they would have to be way safer about it. They wouldn't give you the debt right to the edge of your fucking bubble because they know if you lose your job or you make slightly less this month or whatever, then all of this can come crashing down. This can all be debt you can't pay, which is happening to a lot of things. The defaults are rising. You think people should pay off their mortgage if they can? Mortgage interest is less than investment returns on average. Feels like you should pay down the debt if you can, but mathematically it makes more sense. If you have a 30-year mortgage, it depends on the interest rate that you're paying every month. If you have like a 2% interest rate, you should not pay that down. You have an incredible deal. You have a 3% or a 4%, I wouldn't pay it down. Once you get above like 6, you could make the strong case that paying it down is a smart thing to do. because that's a greater return than a US Treasury. So when you're paying that debt down, you're basically guaranteeing 6% return. That's 6% interest you're not paying. What is paying it down? I'll explain it. These might seem like simple questions. Please ask them. I think most young people don't know enough about mortgages. So let's say you owe 500K on a house. You got to fill this bar up and there's some interest on top. Every month you'll make your payments. So some part of the payment goes to interest for borrowing the money, and some part goes to actually owning a piece of the house. So early on, most of your payments go to interest. But let's say like you're paying 3K a month or whatever, you pay 3K a month. 15% of that goes to actually owning the house. And this starts adding up. You start getting more actual ownership of the house. And this goes to interest. And as your payments go on, you get more and more of it towards the principal and less to the interest. What you can do is ahead of time, you can pay more than your monthly payment and just pay purely to this. If you'd like to, if you had extra 5K or whatever, you could just dump it into this and start getting this, because your interest is only on this remaining part. Interest is on what's left. So the more you pay this down, the less interest you're paying in total. That's the idea. And because it's based on your interest rate you did when you signed up, so if I got this loan at a 6% interest rate, then everything I pay off early, it's like I'm earning 6% on that money. But what most people say, because most people have interest rates that are like 2%. So rather than take this 5K and put it here and save a little money here, you take the 5K and put it into the stock market, or you put it into treasuries, or you put it into something else that earns more than 2%. That's totally fine. Paying down your house early really depends on whether you value the financial freedom and peace of mind of reducing debt. But the purely mathematical smart thing to do is usually to not pay down more than the minimum and put it into something that has a return. That's the general accepted thing. I'm of the opinion that, there's a lot of benefit in like building this equity, reducing your interest payments, making progress. It's guaranteed. You feel more like you have ownership. Paying this off eventually is going to feel great. There's different sides to it, right? Does interest only accrue from the start of the loan? If you pay it off instantly, there's no interest accrued? Yeah. I mean, if you bought a house in cash, there's no interest. If you take out a loan and then pay it off instantly, there's essentially no interest. Yeah. The interest is the cost you pay for borrowing the money. You don't have the money, they're giving it to you, so they're charging you a fee, basically. That's the interest. If you go the full 30-year loan, you're paying the maximum amount of interest. Is it different for me to pay my student loans if I have a less than 6% interest rate for the same logic as this? It's the same logic. It's your call. Like, if you think you can earn more than your interest rate, then the mathematical thing to do is to pay the minimum and put the money to work. But what I'll say is, once you get above like 5-6% and you're saying, I know I can earn more than that, you're kind of lying to yourself. You're kind of taking a risk. Maybe you can, but it's not guaranteed. 5-6% is like above a government treasury, so you have no perfectly safe way to earn that much. You have to take some kind of risk. So it's kind of nice just to pay down the debt, get the guaranteed return, and have less money owed to people. You haven't seen my parlays though? I haven't seen your parlays. Maybe your parlays are fucking untouchable. Ever seen Dave Ramsey? I think you're a younger version of him. I think Dave Ramsey is good at getting young people to be wary of debt, but I don't like that whole style of content, which is mostly about calling up young people and shaming them for their financial choices in like a Jerry Springer move so that other people feel good about themselves. That's more Caleb Hammer than it is that guy, but they do that. And like the people that watch it are really watching it to feel better about themselves. They're not watching it to learn. They're watching it to like see somebody who's struggling and be like, haha, wow, I'm not that bad. He said he wouldn't take a 0% interest $1 billion loan because all debt is bad. Yeah, it's just stupid. I get his greater point. Yeah, I think, society, like I'm saying like this, like if you go back to the drawing, I don't have the cup drawing anymore, but if you go back to the drawing of the cup, in a society where there's like massive banks and student loans and credit cards and BNPL and all these things trying to fill up your cup to the top and get you to take as much debt as possible, Dave Ramsey is a nice antidote, even if I don't like the way he says it, people to realize that like this is bad. Like you shouldn't be trying to maximize your amount of debt you can afford a month. You want to have a big buffer room. Some debt's okay. Like, like if it's investing in yourself, if you're taking on some debt to take a class or learn or get a degree, like these things can work, but you want to try to minimize. So you got a buffer room. I'm investing in a $20 buy now, pay later burrito. You can really take this argument far. I'm investing in myself because I'm hungry. And so I'm door dashing nachos. And when they arrive, I'm not going to be hungry anymore. Food is important. I would die without it. So I'm investing in myself. On what you said before, you're saying when you add the probability of the government bailing you out, suddenly the math pans out. Well, look, like I said here, right? You're a bank and you see this guy who's like right at the limit of his debt cup. This guy makes 5K a month and, 4.9K is allocated. It's going to different loans. This guy's paycheck to paycheck, all right? All of his money is going to servicing the debt on different loans, credit card, student loans, car, house, whatever. If you're a bank and you're like, should I give this guy a loan for a jet ski that'll cost $200 a month? I mean, maybe he can afford, or even say 100, even if it's 100, it's $100 a month. you know, if you are a proper risk assessment bank, you go, listen, this is too risky. He's probably not going to pay us back for the jet ski. He's right at his limit. He's gonna default. Something's gonna go wrong, and then we're not gonna get our money back. But if you're a bank that goes, if he defaults, the government will have our back. Well, then you give him a $200 loan. Who cares? Like, you want him to take on more debt because you're getting the payments. That's the world we're in. We're in a world where the banks don't have to take proper risk. So they give you more loans than you can afford because they know if shit goes south, they're fine. That's called moral hazard. And that's the problem. Can you explain what refinancing a loan house is and how it works? Yeah, sure. This is your house. You're a Zoomer who just bought a house. Good for you. The interest rates, when you buy the house, let's say there's 6%. So you're taking out a $500K loan, 6% interest. I can't do the math on my head, but I don't know what your fucking monthly payment is or whatever, but pick a random number. It doesn't matter. $3,000 a month, whatever. You got a payment. This is your payment. So you got a monthly payment. It's going towards 6% interest and the principal. When you get this, you're like, man, that's a high payment. This interest rate's kind of high, but that's what it is. That's what the market is. It's 6% right now. So you're like, okay, I'll do this for now, but my realtor's telling me in the future I can refinance. And what does refinance mean? It means in the future, if this number goes down, if interest rates go down to like 4%, you can take out a new $500K loan at 4% and pay off this one completely. And so now you're paying this new loan at a lower interest rate. So maybe your payments are like $2,600. That's refinancing. Refinancing is once interest rates are lower, you just take out a big loan and kind of just redo your first loan or whatever's left at the time. Maybe it's $480K at the time, whatever's left. It's fine. I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with refinancing. It's fine. It's just the real problem with it is that realtors will lie to you. So when you're going to get a house and you're like, man, this monthly payment is high, they go, don't worry, marry the house, date the rate. This rate's going to go down. You can refinance, your payments will go down. They promise you that. They lie to you. And they don't know. I want you to know they have no fucking idea. The rates might go up. If you hear marry the house, date the rate, or you can easily refinance, just know they are lying through their teeth because they get a cut of this sale and they just want you to get the deal done. Just know. I mean, the rates could go down and you could refinance it. People need to do that. That's what they're trying to do. In fact, what they're trying to do right now is add a 50-year mortgage so you can refinance your 30-year to a 50-year and get your payments down. When you refinance your house, do you lose your equity in it? No. You're only taking a refinance on the part of the principal you haven't paid. If you have a $500K loan and you pay down $20K, you're getting a $480K refinance. And then the last thing I'll say, because I want you to understand. What I'm talking about here is a fixed rate. That's where you have a 30-year mortgage and you're paying the same interest every year, 30 years. 30-year fix. It's an American classic. Many countries don't have this, and some places in America are now doing adjustable rate mortgages again, which again was one of the big problems in 2008. Adjustable rate mortgage is like this. It's like, hey, you need a $500K loan. This payment is too high. But we're going to give you a $500K loan, and the first 3 years will be 2% interest, or 1% interest, or 0% interest. You'll have very low payments for the first 3 years. You'll pay $1,200. You'll pay nothing. You'll pay really low. And then after 3 years, it'll adjust up to the market rate, whatever that is. But don't worry, by then it's going to be low. Don't worry. And what happens with adjustable rate mortgages is that people get them and they can make the payments fine and dandy for the first year, 2 years, whatever long the arm lasts. Usually like it's a 2-year adjustable rate mortgage. And then all of a sudden, it spikes up to the actual rate, 6%. And their payment goes from $1,200 to $3K. And they can't afford it. And all of a sudden, it's fucking chaos. All of a sudden, they're screwed. And then they have to kind of try to sell the house to get out of the money. And everyone's trying to sell at the same time, and the prices come down. That's like 2008. This happens a lot with cars. A lot of you have probably been faced with a possible car loan where they go like 0% down, 0% APR for the first 24 months or whatever. And basically what it is like you can buy the car for like no money and no payment. It doesn't kick in for 12 months, 16 months, whatever. And then when it kicks in, suddenly you have this big payment you weren't thinking about. But they've already got you. You're already contracted. They don't care. I don't know. We covered a lot of mortgage stuff today, but I think it's cool for you guys to know. I think that's good. Go back to playing games, anime boy. Can you imagine I was streaming this whole thing on Dog's channel? They'd be like, what the fuck is going on? I've been talking about mortgages for fucking an hour and a half.
All right. So I hope that all that shit was educational. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you didn't. But regardless, we're gonna go ahead and finish the temple farm next time. And then read off the new Palm 2 PC Kim chat logs for the hot and fresh floor. But that's it for now. Take it easy.